Welcome to the Art of Consulting podcast with Andy Fry and Kat Lamb. We are seasoned IT consultants, CPAs, and professional development connoisseurs. Each episode, we bring you an inspiring message to help you discover that X factor as a professional in your field so that you can gain the success that you know you deserve in your career and in your life. Hey, you guys, it's Andy and Kat, and today we're going to be talking about something that is very pertinent to you advancing in your career. Because if you don't pay attention to this, I'm sorry to be blunt, but you're just not going to be going anywhere in your life, as intense as that sounds. And that is the question of who's really responsible for building your strengths and making sure that your skill set is up there, that you're technically good enough, that you've got all of this development as a part of your career, right? Who's responsible for that? Andy?
Yeah. So this question kind of popped up, but I think often we put it on to other people to train us. And this, I think, happens as soon as we go and get a job for somebody. And I think it actually happens earlier when we're in school and we rely on the teachers, the school system to teach us. And somebody would say, wouldn't it be obvious that the school system would be responsible to educate somebody, a child to read? Well, we already know that, if children aren't reading at home, that they're only getting a little bit of reading time in school. And the reason I use these school examples is primarily because I'm a parent, but everybody who's listening has gone through the school system in some shape or form. So, sure. If you're not doing those things, to build those skills and to develop those skills, you're really getting very little time in school, or if you're playing sports with the coach to get better skills and better fundamentals, you have to do all this stuff on your own. That's why, and that's really one reason why there's so few elite athletes, so few elite students, because for the most part, they have to do a lot of stuff and be motivated to do that kind of stuff on their own. And that, I think, carries into our adulthood as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you are, to carry your example a little bit further, if you're taking piano lessons, you can't really expect to just play piano at your 45-minute lesson, right? If that. And so the expectation is that if you're going to take something like piano lessons, then you are expected to practice an hour every day in order to develop your skills so that when you're actually at the lesson itself, then you can be critiqued and sort of your skills can be tweaked so that you can actually level up. Right? But the actual development, the time and the effort spent for your own development is on your own time, and it's probably even on your own dime.
That's right.
Right?
That's 100%. Yeah. And I, if I use the sports example, I coach hockey, and there are players that come and you can clearly see who's doing work at home. They're shooting or stick handling or watching videos and trying to improve themselves. And there are other players that they come on the ice, they get their few ice times, a few practices a week, a couple of games, and that's it. They're not doing anything on their own. And it shows. Mm-hmm. And this isn't about, a lot of people will, and sports is a tough one to use an example because people will think, oh, well, kids are only doing it or parents are pushing to get the players to the NHL or Major League Baseball or the NFL or whatever it is. To me, I look at it and let's remove that kind of nonsense. If you're going to do something, you should put effort in to get better. And it's okay to go and have fun. That for sure, fun should be one of the big things. But there's nothing wrong. And fun and getting better and putting attention and being diligent in your practice, those things are not mutually exclusive. They can all be, in fact, they should all be combined together. And the people who become good at whatever they do combine that together. And there's nothing to tell, for a child or a student or an adult who's learning something new to say, it's okay to learn the piano with no intent of saying I need to be a professional musician. You're just going and putting that time in to be good at something, to learn skills and to accomplish something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because this actually reminds me of an interview that I've seen, or sorry, that I heard recently. Tony Robbins was actually interviewing Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor, obviously, world class champion in the area of MMA, and they were talking about what Conor needs to do to develop himself to be this world champion. Like, what does it take for this person to put in to be the top, right? And we're not even talking like within his own weight class. He was like the champion in various weight classes at the same time for a very long time, right? And then even after retirement, he comes back into play, and then boom, he like kicks everybody's ass. So like, what is the secret to what he has to do? And what he says is that he was taking a look at, so obviously, he practices, he surrounds himself with all of these teams that help him get better, and that they analyze everybody else's fight style, and then they spar with him, and so like they basically, he's got like a lineup of fighters of various disciplines for him to waiting for him to beat them up, essentially. Right? And the whole entire point is that if he can be successful winning in one particular style, while he needs to be successful in various other different styles to close up any sort of gaps, right? In case somebody shows up in the ring with this particular whatever style. So, but the way that came about is that he was looking at, like, obviously he makes a lot of money, right? And where he spends his money is, he's a very stylish person. He, buys all these cars, all this material. He has a great life, obviously, right? And then he was looking at Kobe Bryant, and he realized that Kobe Bryant spends $1.3 million on himself just for development. Right? Like, we're talking therapists, we're talking, sports development, we're talking health. He's got a plethora of people to help him keep healthy and at his, standard, and also to help him level up. And then Conor was like, wow, this guy spends $1.3 million. How much do I spend? He goes, I spend zero. Right? So then he turned that whole entire thing around, and he really took accountability to essentially his own development, such that when he shows up in the ring, that's where the fruits of his labor is seen, right?
Yes. And that's a great example, because in fact, it's great because he noticed that Kobe Bryant was doing that, and he realized that he was not, and he went and did it. So it's one thing to kind of live in the dark and just kind of scurry around and flail away. But the fact that he was able to recognize someone else who is phenomenally successful, figure out what they were doing, realize he wasn't, and then go and do that. Although those are very simple steps, most people don't do it. And so you've nailed it right on the head, that he took it upon himself, because we look at like a guy like an MMA fighter or a boxer, or someone who's an individual sport. And we could pick Serena Williams, we could pick anybody who does like kind of an individual sport and say, oh, they've got this team. Well, that team is built up because of her, or right. She has someone who's close to her who has a vested interest in making sure she's successful. Mm-hmm. But it comes down to that individual to say, hey, I want to be good.
Mm-hmm. And surround yourself and seek out these individuals to surround yourself with them.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And Maria Sharapova is another one where she worked on a linguistics person to improve her speech so she sound more like an American, so she can get more, commercials and stuff like that. Right. And, and she developed a lot of business type of stuff. But so you're 100% right, that each person's responsible for their own development. And if we look at, I think this conversation leads into what we talked about earlier, Kat, and I don't know if we want to bring that term up, but breaking down really where your passion and stuff is. And we're not going to touch on that today. I think that's really good for our next show, because I think, developing those skills leads into the areas that you're passionate about. Because Kobe Bryant with basketball, spending time developing his skills in basketball, but what are the complementary skills that he needs to become a great basketball player? or Conor McGregor, the same thing, right? What complementary skills does he need to be a great MMA fighter? And what's he going to do after he's done fighting? Because he can't fight till he's 60 years old. That's ludicrous. What is he going to do after that, to have a successful career in life?
Yeah, exactly. So bringing it back to the IT realm that we are all in, what does that mean? Well, obviously, the first thing that people will think about are technical skills. Oh, well, what kind of new programming language is out there that I can learn? Or what sort of certification can I seek out for some established organization to deem me worthy to provide this particular skill set? But it's really more than just technical skill, because technical skill has really been commoditized over the last 15 to 20 years. Would you say?
For sure. Yes. And it constantly changes, but you're 100% right. Technical skills have definitely been commoditized, for sure.
Right? All you have to do is take a look at any sort of offshore delivery service delivery, right? They have a huge resource pool of very, very qualified technical resources who can build you any sort of system or write any sort of code, but they're still not making bank. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So technical skill, yes, it's like Conor McGregor learning to throw a punch, or learning to throw a roundhouse, or fighting in a particular martial art that he doesn't necessarily fight. That's technical skill, right? But where Conor McGregor actually soars, it's beyond the ring. Like, the guy's got a whiskey company, doesn't he? It's called Dublin 12, and it's wildly successful. But the only reason why it's, well, actually not the only reason, but one of the reasons why it's successful is because he has the insight to develop more than just his technical skills. Do you really think that because you can throw a punch really, really well, that you can suddenly go into business and become very successful? I think that's delusional. They're completely two different skill sets. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure. 100%. And I think that one of the things, I think we touched on this on a previous podcast, like way back, I think in our very first year, was one of the things that I found was that most skills, by far, you make more money being a specialist. So, but those specialized skills are supported by general skills. So even Conor McGregor, if we find out what he does really well, it might be that he does some very specific things very well. It might be that he's very detailed. Right? He might be able to take direction really well. It might be some very general skills that he has that supports all of the specialized things that he does. And most people want to go straight into the specialized stuff, but you need to have those general skills to build the specialized skills. And that's why, but we do this by developing, right? By developing the skills and constantly growing and being, again, responsible for it, because you're 100% right. Him being a great MMA fighter does not lead into him being a great business person. However, him realizing what does he do really, really well, he can parlay that into something else and leveraging that. So.
Yeah, for sure. And to add to your point, and actually going back to the, what else besides technical skill that is relevant to us in IT? Well, again, when we talk about technical skills, it's all been commoditized. We already know that, right? Like, we can find this super intelligent developer from, Eastern Europe, and he can build us whatever beautiful website or some sort of app that, brings you your newspaper every day and your slippers. I don't know. But that's not where the bank is. The bank is found in how well you can work together with others. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the bank is in your communication skills. It's how well you can convey your message and how receptive it is. The bank could be even in our realm in the IT world, and maybe even, the corporate world, it's called communication skills, but really they're sales skills, right? How to persuade others into your way of thinking, or how to convey your message in a manner that's going to be very palatable to your audience or your recipient or your client or even your employer. Those are all forms of sales skills that nobody in IT would ever go to develop on their own. Why? Because everybody thinks in IT that, oh yeah, what I'm paid for is my technical skills. And what I'm trying to say is that you're not paid for your technical skills. Somebody can be way dumber than you are in technical skills and still make tons more and we'd be way more successful than you because they know how to work with people and they know how to convey their message in a manner that is palatable to their audience. Does that make sense?
100%. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I think this is where, when people, if we let the market, I think about like if you're floating on a boat in the ocean, and you're just letting the waves take you wherever you go. And rather than actually being in control and figuring out how to navigate the water, figure out where you're going and start to develop those skills and get advice along the way. So you know that where you're headed and you actually build up those skills. Because a lot of people, they enter in a business, they enter into an industry and they just let the industry take them where it's going.
Yeah.
And, they're in engineering or oil and gas or utilities or shipbuilding or whatever it is. And they just kind of let the industry, take them. And if you get into a time when that industry is taking off, then you may have a great career. You may have a lot of growth. There might be a lot of opportunities. But the fact is you're still letting the industry drive you where it ends up.
Isn't that sort of natural though? Like I know I did that. I did that for a long time until I decided that, hey, you know what? Like I'm really great at this and I recognized that there was opportunity in the market. And then I made a conscious effort to develop myself in that area. But most people, it's like, it's really great to land a job with Google, and wherever Google goes if Google is successful, that means I'm going to be successful.
Right. And I think that's because we're told that, right? We're all taught that. And I'm not speaking primarily North America. We're also taught it because, we have parents and grandparents who were taught, hey, go get a job at the steel mill or the bank or the grocery store or whatever it is, and you stay there. And you relied on your employer to take care of you. And many of them had really quite nice lives because their employers did contribute back. Mm-hmm. And so they relied on that employer to train them. They had, a path to go up. And eventually, they hit middle management or they hit a spot where there was a lot of people who were above them that were a couple years older and they just stagnated out. But for the most part, they got a paycheck. They were treated relatively well. And that was the way it worked. Mm-hmm. Times changed. And what happened was, so there's a lot of confusion, I think, where people, go into an industry or go in to get a job and they kind of let it run. Now, the best, a lot of people, when they enter the workforce, that's where you get, you kind of cut your teeth. You cut your teeth in big companies or companies that are willing to give you a chance. It's difficult to come straight out of college, university, and just say, hey, I'm going to go work on my own and start carving my own path and life.
Oh yeah, that's hard. That's super hard. I mean, there's so few people who can do that. There's only so many Mark Zuckerbergs in the world.
So most people cut their teeth in companies, but at some point when we realize, yes, I'm responsible for myself, which is, kind of what we want to talk about here is, I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my own career, my own education, and where I go. Usually people start to take that path and say, hey, I'll start doing my own thing. And realizing that, I'm really responsible to go out and get my own education and actually carve my own path in life.
For real. I think that if anything is the top skill set for being resilient in this industry, or even for your career, wherever you feel your career would lead you, I think that identifying that you are responsible for your own development. I don't care if you're working for somebody or you've been self-employed for a long time, or you're looking for that next step in your career and you want to be a part of an organization, that's totally fine. But I think that the fact that if you, first of all, identify that you and you alone are responsible for your own development, I think that is key to being resilient and successful in any industry you will be in. You will be recession proof. You will be, it doesn't much matter what the economy is like. I don't care where you are in the world. Well, actually, that's not necessarily true. So our realm of discussion is within North America and perhaps the first and second world countries, right? But that one thing that you can do for yourself to realize that you are accountable to your own personal development and professional development is going to bring you a lot of resilience in your career.
Right. And I think for the person out there that says, hey, Andy and Kat, I like just working for this company. I like just doing this. I don't aspire to be, much more and go out and do that. That's fine too. For those folks, but make the conscious choice to do that. If somebody chooses to stay, and then you make the conscious choice to say, actually say to yourself, I'm choosing to stay. And understand that comes with benefits, meaning, you don't have to take some of the risks that going on your own, but it also comes with some downside. And that's fine. We're not telling everybody, hey, everybody quit your job and go start on your own. We are saying that there are fantastic opportunities when you do that. And, so the people who say, hey, you know what, I really, really, really just want to just work at the company I'm working for, hey, all the power to you, but make the conscious choice to do it. It's important that we're very conscious and deliberate in the choices we make, as opposed to just, again, letting, the ocean kind of take us where it goes and not realizing that we were the ones that chose. We were either complicit in it, just, letting it happen to us, or we made an explicit decision to actually do it.
Right. So, and I know that a lot of people are thinking this in their head right now. You're probably thinking, oh, I definitely know that I'm responsible for my own career path, and I definitely know that I'm accountable, and I definitely am accountable. But then when it comes time to take a course that it costs, say, like $1,000 to take this course, well, their first inkling is to be like, okay, well, I'm going to ask my company to pay for it. And their company, if the company pays for it, then yes, they'll take that course. There's no problem. But if their company doesn't pay for it, then they won't take the course. Do you know what I'm saying? And then they'll be like, oh, well, my company didn't pay for it, so I can't take it. That is the opposite of being accountable. Like, you can't just pay lip service to yourself and say, I'm accountable. And then the minute that stuff gets real, you're shifting the blame. Oh, it's my company. My company won't let me. That's not taking accountability.
No. And you're 100% correct. My first job out of after I graduated from college was I was working for a retail company. I was earning I started at $19,000 a year, and that was back in 1993. It was really a paltry sum. So, but I still continued to take courses, and I was appreciative of the opportunity to work because I actually ended up learning a lot of skills that served me today. But I had to, because the company wasn't paying for any additional courses for me. That's just not normal in retail. So I had to actually try to figure out how to come up with the money to take additional courses, finish my CMA, which ended up being a CPA as the groups merged. But I was responsible for that and trying to work that out. Now, that's not for me to just pat myself on the back. The point is that we are responsible for ourselves, and there are a lot of people who do it. So for people to think, well, it's okay for that person who has extra supports or somebody over here or there, it doesn't work for me. Trust me, it does. There's a lot of single moms who go back to school, who take courses, people who are in actually very difficult situations that continue to work on their development. So let's not cut ourselves short or also, cut ourselves off where we think that we just can't do it. It's very important to realize that we are responsible. We're the ones that make it or break it. And that's just the way it is.
For sure. I wanted to point out one other trap, and that is the trap of certifications. Because a lot of people in our profession, in the IT industry, will go for whatever certification, a PMP or ITIL or whatever have you. And it's really great that you can be certified and that somebody, some other outfit has put a stamp on you saying that you've taken those courses, and that is all. But that, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. That is all. Even if you take a bunch of certifications, it's just saying that you have studied to be this. Great. It doesn't actually mean that you're suddenly great at it. You just have studied from a course, right?
Yes.
So part of the accountability to develop yourself is actually to action what you have learned. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, 100%. It's funny because I break down training and education. So some people are trained, and I can't train a monkey to do this, but people can train a monkey to play video poker based on symbols and colors and shapes and sounds. Does that monkey really know how to play poker? Of course not. It's reacting to shapes and colors and sounds, and that's it. It's trained. It's not educated. It's really important that we become educated. And so Pat hit it on the head, where when we take courses or we get a certification or we take, learn something, read a book, whatever it is, that we take that and put it into practice. Because I've seen people with designations and certifications who don't put what they learned in practice. Mm-hmm. I've seen other people who don't have those certifications, yet they're very educated in certain areas and are using their skills and their knowledge and what they've learned every day to better themselves and whoever they're working for.
For sure. So what would you say, and I'm starting to wrap up here, but what would you say are the top 3 things that we in the realm of IT should be paying attention to when we're ready to say, yes, I am taking accountability, like complete 100% accountability for my career development? What are the top 3 things that they should be looking at or paying attention to?
I think first thing that worked for me was, what areas am I struggling with? And most of those were interpersonal. So when I was at, a client site, where am I struggling with either conflict with somebody, or where am I struggling with, let's say, a document being returned, having to rewrite something, those sorts of areas, and going and getting education there. I think the world itself is constantly giving us feedback and telling us the areas that we need to improve on. And that just goes basic every day. If a driver drove by and gives you the finger because you cut him off, you probably should start to work on your driving skills. And if it happens every day, it's probably, if it happens to me every day, it's probably me, not every other driver on the road. Mm-hmm. And so the world is constantly giving us feedback on where we fit in, what we know, and how we're fitting with people around us. So I think that's probably the first thing. I know that's what I did, was when I started to really invest in myself, was to look at the people around me and say, where am I having conflict? Either technical skills or interpersonal skills, softer skills, and what areas should I actually work on in that?
I'm really glad you said that, Andy, because a lot of the first inkling for most people, and it really does take some introspective to understand this or to be aware of where you are struggling, right? Because the vast majority of us are going to be like, well, it's his fault. It's his fault that he's not getting my message. It's his fault that he doesn't understand what I'm going with. And really, if it's not, right? That's what we're trying to say. It's not his fault. If your recipient doesn't understand the message that you're conveying, it's not really his fault for misinterpreting it. It's your fault for miscommunicating it.
Right. Right. And I'll use the example that I had was when I started to really do some self-evaluation, I realized that I was having conflict with one particular woman. And what I realized as I started to evaluate that, I realized that I would have conflict with that type of woman, that personality, all of my life. That personality of that female was always in my life at some point. They were different individuals, but that personality always showed up. And what I realized was I hated feeling the way I felt. And so I started to look for training on how to better work with individuals and develop my interpersonal skills so that, I could better work with people that cause some form of conflict with me, because it wasn't, like you said, Kat, it wasn't a one-way street. It wasn't her just causing conflict with me. It was me with her. And when I realized this has happened all of my life, I was the common denominator. And so it was the common denominator with that personality type. So how can I function with it? Because I realized this person's probably going to show up, or this personality type is going to show up in my life always. So I needed to figure out how to function with them. So that was, for me, that was one of the first areas I looked at, because I just wanted to be able to not live with this kind of stress and conflict consistently.
Right. So number one, struggles. Where are you struggling with? What's the second one?
Yeah, I think the second one would be, where do I want to go? So what skills am I lacking, or where do I want to end up? So, what goals do I have? If you're in a position right now, what position would you like to have, or what job would you like to have? And start to develop those, start to look for those types of skills to start to support. Because you have to, again, we're kind of taught in school that somewhere someone's going to hire us and teach us all the skills we need. They don't do that.
No.
We go and we get a job because we have those skills. And, experience helps, but you need to be able to do the things that you can do. So you have to develop those skills before you get those roles.
For sure.
You're not learning on the job. That doesn't happen today.
For sure.
Much, at least, as it used to. So I think that's the second one for me was, starting to figure out again, where do I want to be and what skills do I need for that?
Right. I mean, there's always going to be an element of learning on the job, right? Because as a consultant, you know this because you've been in consulting for a long time as well. But you're not going to ever have 100% of the answers all the time. There are going to be areas in which you are going to have to figure out as you get there. So there is a little element of learning on the job. But in regards to where you want to go, like identifying where you want to go, I think it's also really important to understand that you yourself are the person who sets the parameters, not your organization, not where you think the industry is going to go. Because a lot of people, like a lot of us, can very easily say, well, I'd like to do this, but my company doesn't operate in that area, or the oil and gas industry is so seasonal that I will never, it doesn't pay for me to develop in this area because by the time I get there, we'll have gone through a bust cycle, something like that, right? When you think about where you want to go or where you see yourself in your next, or as your next step, or maybe even in a number of years, I think it's really important to remove the parameters that face you right now, right? Right. So I just wanted to sort of add that in. And so what is the third thing, the final third thing?
For me, I think the third thing that I know that really helped my career and helped my life was, I don't know if the word holistic is the right term for it, but is some form of holistic learning. And that might be spiritual. It might be learning about other cultures. It might be learning about compassion, those sorts of things. And I think something that is in line with, I don't want to start talking about meditation and things like that, but we need to learn things that are outside of just what we've learned. And I think, exposing ourselves to other types of people, other experiences, possibly other religions or other faiths, those sorts of things starts to really broaden us out. And I think that what I've experienced in my life is the people that are the most rigid in their cultural type of beliefs, and I want to just phrase this for a second, but people who are very, very rigid in their cultural beliefs tend to have more interpersonal struggles. Now, that doesn't mean that people have strong faith. I find, people who are Jewish, Muslim, Christians, all types of different religions who have very, very strong faith. But they're often, the people who have very strong interpersonal skills are very open and accepting of other people, very tolerant of other people with their different beliefs, as opposed to, again, being very rigid and thinking that their belief is the only belief. And I think that, because we have to work with so many people in so many different areas, different types of understandings, I think that's something. And I think it's not just how we work with ourselves. I think we learn a lot about ourselves when we learn more types of, I'm going to use the word spiritual, more types of spiritual learning.
Yeah, I totally agree. In regards to outside disciplines, it's it's interesting what you can learn when about both yourself and your field of expertise, and how you learn, in that if you were to go into an area that you're completely, you don't even have to go out of your comfort zone all that much. It's just something that is new to you, right? Like, for example, I'm making my husband take ballroom dancing. And this is a little bit out of his comfort zone, right? But it's something new to him, and that is going to add a whole entire dimension on how he moves athletically for anything else that he does. And we talked about this in previous episodes before, but like a lot of hockey players, for example, had chosen to take ballet or yoga. I remember there's like this wrestler guy, I don't remember who his name is, or what his name is rather, that was interviewed that I heard a few weeks ago. And he actually is this huge bodybuilder guy who took up yoga. And it was the hardest thing for him to ever take, because he's never taken that before. But because he has taken yoga, he now can lift a lot more. Like, it's totally helped him level up in his own discipline, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
100%. Yes. And I think those experiences, they change something within us, and we can benefit professionally from it, but it also changes things within us. So my daughter's 7 years old. She's in dance, and I've gone to her dance recitals before and, enjoyed them for what they were. And then the last recital I went to, I sat there and I watched these young ladies dance, and I don't want to, get too deep, but I felt the struggles, as much as a man can feel, that some of these girls are going to have. And I felt that I just, in my heart, I looked at them and I thought how great it was for them to be able to go on stage and dance and perform, because there's so many struggles that females have with their bodies and with men, all of these different things. And I looked at that and I thought how this is a very, very, it was such an important thing for me to experience, because I realized how some of them are, they will leave, grow up, or even at that time, they're experiencing struggles. And so, there's things that we experience when we go and we open ourselves up to these things. And I know, again, as a guy, I can't comment on the struggles that females have, or people that are extremely, let's say other people that are experiencing tougher things. But I was able to feel that at that time and realize that, for me, it was to open up more compassion. So just even that small experience of letting myself, open up to what was happening in front of me, and not just sit there and go, okay, here, when is this thing going to be over? I experienced each thing and felt what, felt something at least. And so I think that's a big thing, I think, that could change us as a human being. And our professional careers will benefit from it, but even if it doesn't, we benefit as human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the saying? How you do anything is how you do everything. So whatever you learn in your profession, you can apply in every other, and you will apply in every other area of your life.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. So we hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. Top 3 things to think about when you're taking accountability for your personal development or your career development, whatever, any sort of development that you have. First of all, that the point is that you yourself needs to take accountability for it. 100% accountability for it. You can't shift the buck onto anybody else, and certainly not your employer, right? For that matter. And the top 3 things: what are you struggling at? Where do you want to go? And try new stuff. That's really the top 3 things. That's the best things that you can do in order to move in the direction of taking accountability for yourself. Any last words, Andy?
No, I think that was I like that episode. I think maybe just for everybody, just keep improving and just try to improve a little bit each day.
Absolutely. So last 2 things I wanted to mention is that in September, and I believe the date we have already set as, was it September 17th or September 10th? I don't remember. I think it's September 17th.
Yeah, 17th. I think.
17th? Okay, yes. So September 17th, we are going to try something very new. And we're actually going to host a live workshop on our Facebook. So it's going to be online, right? But it's going to be live and it's just going to be for our Facebook group. So if you are not in our Facebook group yet, please go ahead and join. All you need to do is look for Success Code to be self-employed in IT, or just Success Code, and you will find our private Facebook group. We need to admit you into our Facebook group. And then once you're in there, we're actually going to have a workshop for communication skills. I think it's communication skills, right? Like how to talk better.
That's right, exactly.
How to talk more goodly. September 17th. So stay tuned for more details. And the final thing is that a few months ago, we had just released some new training. So if you have not seen that training yet, go to artofconsultingpodcast.com/call. You do need to register for it. It is completely free. And it's for intermediate to senior level professionals who have been in IT. So intermediate to senior means if you have been in the industry 5 years and above, that's pretty much going to make you intermediate, if not senior. All right. So go and check out artofconsultingpodcast.com/call for our new training. And if at the end of the training, you would like to chat with us to explore more about what you can do with your career in being self-employed, we are certainly we're certainly open to help you explore that. All you need to do is book a call with us. So you'll have the opportunity at the end of that seminar. Don't try and book before, because we're not going to talk to you if you haven't seen the training yet. So at the end of the call, you'll be able to have a button, click on book us some time, and on that call, we're going to help you explore where exactly you want to go, what those barriers are, and what you need to do to get there. All right. Once again, artofconsultingpodcast.com/call, and we'll see you on the call.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. If you like what you heard and are interested in seeing if you'd be a great fit to work with Kat and myself, then head on over to artofconsultingpodcast.com/call. That's artofconsultingpodcast.com/call, and book an appointment to speak with us. We'll talk with you for about 45 minutes, and we'll get you clear on 3 things: putting together a solid game plan to start as an independent IT consultant, getting complete control over your career and time, and commanding the salary that you always wanted. Remember, developing and building a great consulting business does not happen by itself. You need an expert advice and guidance to make it happen. And we're 20+ year veterans in the independent IT space while enjoying life and delivering unparalleled service to our clients. To see if we can help you do the same, head on over to artofconsultingpodcast.com/call. I'm Andy Fry.
I'm Kat Lamb.
And let's talk soon.